Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Get comfy as I start my introduction to Darkon's history with a creation myth that all Darkonians believe to be true. In the beginning, the world was dead, a grey realm devoid of color and passion. Pale spirits of the dead, of the never-born, populated the grey realm. These shades wandered aimlessly through this existence, watched over by death itself. Death ruled over the grey realm with its three companions, three horsemen: sickness, starvation, and strife. What gave Death its power over the Grey Realm was the secret it held. Death alone possessed the knowledge of its antithesis, life. Eons passed unnoticed while Death gloated over the little secret. Eventually, a fluttering spirit called Darkonus happened to steal a glance over the Death's captive. That brief glimpse was enough for Darkonus to feel sensations of curiosity, identity, and purpose. He was not yet alive, but he was not longer truly dead. Darkonus longed to claim the spark of life. He could not unlock the mystery of it, but he did discover a pale imitation, the crude animating force imbued within the golems. Furious, Death ordered Darkonus dragged to his throne, where Darkonus proclaimed that he has stolen the secret of life. Enraged, Death revealed the spark of life within his grasp. Darkonus immediately leaped forward and seized the spark, placing it within himself. That's how he became the first living thing. Death ordered the mage stopped, as one horseman struck Darkonus down, yet the life escaped through his mortal wounds, pulsing in torrent across the grey realm. As it washed over the flittering spirits, they too were imbued with life. The land itself awoke, and the sun rose for the first time. Some spirits touched only by a few drops of life, and were merely tainted with hunger and ambition. They became the first undead. Unable to bear the dawning of life, Death and the truly dead retreated beyond the borders of the living world. The land of Darkon, stolen from the dead, was carved from the Grey Realm. For long, Darkon existed outside of the mists. Scholars call that time the Age of Arcane, but eventually the Age of the Strongest Wizards came to an end. In the late fall of 579 Barovian calendar, Darkon merged with Barovian cluster to create the core with Azalin Rex as the ruler. Occult scholars have long known that prior to his arrival in Darkon, Azalin spent almost 4 decades studying planar matters under Count Shroud von Zarvich's supervision. The mutual hatred remains the staff of legend. Azalin spent the first months of his reign raising an army. By some accounts, he originally formed the Kargat, the secret vampire wizard police, to lead his forces into Barovia to repay Shroud for his kindness. The impending war, however, never grew beyond a handful of raids and border skirmishes. It is believed that the war was thwarted when Shroud's soldiers infiltrated the Darkonian war camp in the spring of 580 and assassinated the Kargat's leaders. Azalin's war efforts faltered and Shroud never retaliated. Ultimately, the two leaders simply lost interest in each other. In the spring of 588 Barovian calendar, the Scourge of Arak wiped out the entire culture in a single day. The few Arakans left behind in Darkon had nothing to return to and soon faded into the Darkon populace. The people of the core reacted to the scourge with all the horror reserved for the Requiem today. They shunned Arak as a no-man land, cutting off Darkon's mainland route to the southern core. Even so, a stream of immigrants, both foreigners from the south and the outlanders from distant realms, were drawn to Darkon, steadily expanding the kingdom's population. Darkon certainly suffered setbacks during this era, but none threatened the nation so severely as the plague known as the Crimson Death. Incredibly violent, the Crimson Death could kill in days, a hideous demise that ended with the victim bleeding to death through their skin. Fatality reports traced the plague spread back to the Boglands in the autumn of 688, though its true origin remains a mystery. Despite the administration of healers, the plague swept throughout the country and wiped out as much as 20% of the population over the course of a single winter. In the 700s, on 4 occasions within a span of little more than 20 years, the Volkovian warlord Vlad Drakov gathered his troops and ordered them into Darkon and to claim Azalin's crown. Every invasion ended in a crushing Volkonian defeat. Drakov's armies vastly outnumbered the Darkonian defenders, yet it took Drakov 4 humiliating defeats to come to grips with the full power of Azalin's wrath. As the troops slaughtered each other on the battlefield, Azalin reached out of Avernus and animated broken corpses of the fallen. Every soldier cut down rose again to rend Volkonian flesh. Every invasion ended in mere days as the decimated Volkonians broke into a panicked retreat for the border. That was the end to what was later called Dead Man's Campaign. Darkon's fortunes would turn for the worse in 735 Barovian calendar, for Azalin discovered a Vistani prophecy, his Kosas Hexad, listing 6 events that would portend the coming of a grand conjunction. a planar inversion in which everything in the Land of the Mists would be cast out. Azalin then spent the next 5 years somehow forcing these events to take place, thus prematurely bringing about the conjunction. Yet the same theorists posit that Azalin might have inadvertently saved the world. By artificially manipulating the conflicts of events, Azalin perhaps weakened them, causing the Grand Conjunction to collapse before its completion. The end result, of course, was the Great Upheaval of 740. In hindsight, it becomes clear that the failure of the Great Upheaval stung Azalin badly. To recover, he turned his attention to his most terrible creation. The Doomsday device was the artifact of awesome power designed to drain the souls of countless mortals and channel that energy into Azalin in a single concentrated burst. Azalin would be transformed into a being of pure spiritual energy, powerful enough to pierce the mists and travel the planets beyond. Azalin and his apprentices toiled at the project throughout the 740s, with the earliest known prototype constructed in 748. Azalin soon unleashed a secret cabal of murderers, the Ebonfold, into Darkon and its neighbors. Armed with enchanted daggers, the Ebonfold spent 2 years collecting souls for their master. Late in 749, Azalin's minions activated the final prototype of the Doomsday device, using a Kargat officer named Lovelin Dachi, who believed himself to be Azalin's bastard child. I believe the spectral entity that now rules the necropolis is none other than Lovelin himself, lost in delusions that he is the mythic figure, Death. A year later, Azalin performed the Darkest Night ceremony known as the Requiem in Second Aluk. At the stroke of midnight on the winter solstice of 750, Azalin sealed himself within the true Doomsday device and activated it. The ensuing wave of energy expanded in every direction, reaching every border. Darkon's planar fabric was insidiously altered, and a spiritual malice fell across the land. The era that followed is now known as the Shrouded Years. Darkon was left with neither king nor heir. Always an ambitious lot, the nobles turned on each other. The surviving Kargat went underground, hiding from the folk who thought them dead. Vlad Dracov wasted no time in seizing on Darkon's frailty. In March of 751, he again drove his armies into Darkon, and for the first time since the invasion of 700, his troops penetrated as far as Nartok. Convinced that their city would fall, the citizens of Nartok were united in terror. And then the dead rose. Even with Azalin destroyed, the corpses still crawled from their graves to attack Drakov's troops. Volkovian morale shattered once more, and their armies broke into full retreat. Then came the drowning of dreams. All across the wounded nation, seemingly random people suffered from particular nightmares, often involving warped memories or sensation of drowning in a lightless void. Scholars believe that the Requiem's energy wave scattered Azalin's essence to far corners of Darkon, literally merging him with every life force in the kingdom. As he was slowly recovering, the people of Darkon sometimes subconsciously sensed the struggle he endured. After 3 years, Azalin had recovered enough of himself to think. He contacted his fellow Triad allies through their dreams to plan his salvation. It involved the creation of an object called a soul focus, an arcane phylactery that would channel Azalin's scattered essence into a new corporeal shell. Unfortunately, Death could also sense drowning dreams, learning of Azalin's plans as quickly as his allies. In the following months, tales spread that 3 hideous undead riders were on the move, leaving swaths of destruction in their wake. The rest of the events are shrouded in mystery, but I hope my listeners are not surprised to hear that Azalin's spores ultimately succeeded late in the summer of 755 Barovan calendar, and Azalin returned to rule Darkon once more. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. Now that you know more about Azalin Rex, I hope you will reconsider visiting Darkon. But if you are still feeling brave enough, be careful while crossing the mists.